The Millrose Games 3000 meters is stacked. It is headlined by a showdown between Olympic 1500 meter champion Cole Hocker and double Olympic bronze medalist in the 5 and 10k Grant Fisher. Also in the race are Teare, Ollie, Hoare, Ahmed, Jimmy Gressier and Stewie Mcsweyn, amongst an illustrious field. In this video, we will be predicting who is most likely to win the Millrose Games 3K and discuss the best route to victory for each athlete, specifically focusing on the Hocker-Fisher showdown, given that that's where most hype and attention is being given. We all know who Cole Hocker is at this point. He is the Olympic 1500 meter champion in probably the greatest and most competitive race of all time, beating the likes of Jakob Ingebrigtsen, Josh Kerr and Yared Nuguse to win with a near 3-second PB of 3:27.65. He is also a two-time American champion in the 1500 meters after dropping his famously lethal kick to outsprint Yared Nuguse. Hocker further has strong indoor credentials, including winning the American 3K title in 2022, securing 2 US indoor 1500 meter championships, and claiming silver in the 1500 meter at the World Indoor Champs last year in Glasgow. He also placed third in last year's Millrose Games 2-miler, running 8:05.7. Currently, Hocker's indoor 3K PB stands at a respectable 7:35. Grant Fisher is of course a longer distance runner who boasts a double bronze in the 5 and 10k in this year's Paris Games. He has strong PBs in both events and even has really good range coming down to the 3k, where he has a blistering personal best of 7 minutes 25 seconds, along with a history of going well below sub 7:30 in the outdoor scene. His indoor PB currently stands at 7:30.35. He also beat Hocker in last year's 2-mile event in the Millrose Games to run an American indoor national record, a race which he was front running a good chunk of. He recently ran in the New Balance Grand Prix to be the runner-up, clocking a 3:33.99, which is really a testament to his range as an athlete. Now, while both runners are incredibly strong in their own disciplines and this will be a close and competitive race, I feel a little more confident with my prediction than I do with the Wanamaker Mile. And whilst I'm not saying this with absolute certainty, I'm betting that Grant Fisher will win the Millrose Games 3000 meters. But why do I think this? Well, getting the obvious out of the way, Fisher's raw times in the 3000 meter/2-mile distance are noticeably faster than Hocker's. Fisher has an indoor 3k PB 5 seconds faster than Hocker, 10 seconds if you include outdoor races. His 2-mile PB is also 2 seconds quicker than Hocker. What's more, the race will have 2 pacers who will take the athletes around the first half of the race, which will allow Fisher to force and maintain a brutal pace more easily. Therefore, it seems like Grant has a clear way to victory, which is essentially to do what he did in last year's games. Track the paces closely and simply try and outwork everyone else. Utilise that 5 and 10k strength he'll have on Hocker and beat the rest of the field. It's not guaranteed that he'll be able to do this successfully, but on paper he is the fittest athlete going into this race. And this tactic would have worked last year if Josh Kerr had not been in world record fitness. Fisher seems to be in strong shape for this race as well in light of his recent training footage posted by Track All Access. Here we see him running a 4-minute mile in training after running a hard 2k and 2x800 at a moderate pace already. As a Grand Slam racer as well, it seems likely he is going to be peaking a little early in the season than he might otherwise, as he is going to be running important 3k 5k races from early April. And as such, we can expect him to be in good shape for this race, even if we didn't have this training footage already confirming that fact. One final thing is that he seems to be loading his indoor season quite nicely, which suggests he's really trying to build momentum ahead of the Grand Slam meets. What's worse, we all know Hocker is one of, if not the most lethal kicker in distance running today, and will therefore thrive off a tactical race. His best route to victory is sitting and kicking on Grant Fisher. He is less likely to be able to use his kick if he has been tired out by a brutal pace, especially if he is having to overtake someone on the sharper bends of a 200 meter track. If this race was not paced, then I would lean more towards Hocker, as he is deadly in the final stretch, but I just don't see him being able to outkick a fit and paced Fisher after a long race. You could argue that Hocker was still able to kick after 3:27 1500 meter, so a 3k in the high 720s to low 730s should be doable. And whilst that is somewhat valid, I think there will be a difference with Hocker's kick in the 3k compared to the 1500 meter, an event his PBs indicate he is heavily specialised in. And whilst Hocker is a phenomenal athlete, from what we have seen of him so far, he seems to be someone who peaks very hard for specific races. Outside of the Olympics itself and one post-Olympic Diamond League in Lausanne, we have not seen him run sub 3:30 before, let alone a 3:27 or 3:28 run. If we compare that to someone like Josh Kerr or Yared Nuguse, we can see that they both had prior history of running sub 3:30 before the Olympics, and of course Ingebrigtsen has a whole catalogue of running sub 3:30. All this to say is that so far, Hocker has only been able to get super elite times when he is right at the peak of his fitness, and most of his prior victories tend to come from him outkicking his opponents. Yes, it's true that Kerr and Nuguse also achieved large PBs in Paris, and therefore also largely benefited from the Olympic peak. But Hocker broke his personal best by 3 seconds and has never approached that time since, which is huge. He's not got that prior history of running super fast times that Fisher has, especially in the 3k distances. And whilst I think it's likely that Hocker will be able to get a PB in the 3K, I don't think he will currently be fit enough to drop the super fast times he's capable of. Whereas I do think Fisher will be capable of getting a really solid time on race day. In fairness, Hocker is also a GST athlete, so it's likely he will be peaking earlier this year than last year, but I think this race will be more of a tune-up for him, given that unlike Fisher, it's not his Grand Slam distance. Given that the race is unlikely to be tactical, what is Hocker's route to victory, assuming Fisher drops the hammer from the start? The simplest possibility is that Hocker is able to hang with Fisher and then drop a classic sit and kick performance. His 2-mile PB, whilst a little slower than Fisher, still demonstrates the strength he has in the longer distances. It was also partially run solo, given that he was in an awkward spot of being faster than the chase pack but slower than the leaders. Hocker also has a sub 13 minute 5k this year, so he is far from being just a speed merchant. I do however question if Hocker is going to focus on building his strength for the longer distances as much as he did last season though. As a GST racer, he has to work more on his speed endurance, given that he is now expected to do the 800 meter as well. He also has bigger 1500 meter races early on in the season, and will be doing his sharpening sooner than last year, leaving less room for that 5k 3k strength work. So whilst it could be possible that Hocker comes back stronger than ever and delivers a vintage performance, I feel like Fisher will be able to shake him off near the end of the race. Another thing to note is that Teare, Cole Hocker's training partner and close friend, will also be competing in this race. And whilst they are of course going to be opponents on the race day, I wouldn't count out some team tactics to help each other keep up with Fisher. Because if they do run off Fisher and help each other out once the paces drop, this could allow Hocker to keep up for long enough to drop his kick on Fisher. I'm not confident they're going to do this, to be honest, and even if they do, I'm not confident it would actually work, but I think it's their best strategy given that this race is unlikely to be tactical. But honestly, I can't think of a good game plan for Hocker to beat Fisher, unless Fisher for some reason decides to let the race be tactical. Or if it turns out that Hocker is in much better fitness than I'm predicting. Based on this poll I ran a few days ago, it seems the majority of you are inclined to agree with me, Fisher does have the advantage here, but if any of you have ideas for Hocker's race plan that I'm missing, then please let me know in the comment section below. Now there are of course other athletes worth mentioning in this race. For instance, we have Ahmed, who came 4th in the Olympic 10k final behind Fisher. There's also Stewie Mcsweyn, who has a very solid personal best of 7:28 for the 3000 meters. And this is an early season race, so you never really know what shape people are in or if someone has had injury issues over the winter. That said, I just don't see any of the other guys really challenging Fisher or Hocker based on their pure fitness. Whilst Ahmed is a beast in the 10k, he has less range than Fisher with a comparatively slow 740 PB in the indoor 3k. Mcsweyn's PB is decent, but he's still a little way off Fisher, and there's little reason to suggest he's going to make a large jump in that time by this point in his career. You do have more 1500 meter specialists like Ollie Hoare, who's run 3:29 in the 1500 meter before, but it's a similar situation where I'm not sure they'll be in the same fitness to challenge Hocker or Fisher. I think the percentage chance of who wins this is something like 60-40 in Fisher's favour. There's definitely a part of me that's feeling a little stupid for counting out Hocker a bit, but I'm going to stick with my guns and see what happens come race day. If you want to see my prediction on who will win the Millrose Games Wanna Make a Mile showdown between Josh Kerr and Yared Nuguse, then click on this video here. If you want to see a video about why track and field is almost completely unpredictable, then click on this video here. Thank you very much for watching, please let me know who you've got in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy training.